This is Rebecca Skinner. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I call this meeting to order. The first order of business is election of officers. I'll take, I guess we'll start with the secretary. I'll take nominations for secretary.
I'll nominate Christine Yost as secretary.
And
Was that you, Tom? Okay.
Tom Langlis, yes. Nominating Christine Yost as secretary.
A second?
Rob Mandino, second.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay with the board, I would like to complete the nominations and then we can vote on the whole slate. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
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 Okay, so the next one would be the vice chairman.
This is Christine Yost. I'd like to nominate Tom Langlis as vice chairman. And,
I'm going to have to decline. You realize that I'm not here 3 months out of the year.
Okay, so Tom, you decline the nomination?
I just want people to think about the fact that I'm not here three months out of the year.
Okay, I guess, is there somebody else who would be might be interested? We could nominate, or otherwise we can just plan on the chairman being present during those 3 months, if at all possible.
Would you be amenable with that proviso, understanding that you're not going to be available for those 3 months, and also understanding that ZBA does not necessarily always meet every month?
Yes, I would go along with that, as long as the people voting realize what they're voting for.
Fair enough.
Okay, it's okay with me. Is there a second for Tom?
Matt Keem is also in that.
Okay. Okay, then for chairman.
This is Christine Yost. I nominate Becky Skinner for the chair position.
This is Tom Langlis. I'll second it.
Okay, we have nominated Christine Yost for secretary, Tom Langlis for vice chairman, and Becky Skinner for chairman. All in favor? I will go through the roll call so that the person taking the minutes knows who everybody is. Rob?
Aye.
Yes?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Tom?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Thank you. Then that's, I guess I'm the chairman, Tom, your vice chair, and Christine, you continue as secretary. And I want to thank everybody I know Christine has been the secretary for a while, and I'm very happy to have her continue. And Tom has been on the commission for a long, long time, and we're proud to have him as vice chair. So the first public hearing is application 2020052801, filed by Kevin Green. And I would like to call that public hearing to order. And I'll ask Christine to read the legal notice.
Yes, I'll read the entire notice that appeared in the paper. This is Christine Yost. The Town of Thomaston Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a virtual public hearing on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the following applications. 1, application number 2020-05-26-03 of Josh Williams and Megan Hill for a variance of section 21.1.h and section 4.5, Schedule A, Part C.26, to locate processing equipment less than 200 feet from the western property line at 1617 Waterbury Road in an M1 light manufacturing zone. Number 2, application number 2020-05-28-01 of Kevin Green for a variance of section 21.1.h and section 4.5, Schedule A, Part C.26, to locate processing equipment less than 200 feet from the western and southern property lines at 555 Waterbury Road in an M1 light manufacturing zone. During this hearing, interested persons may appear virtually and be heard, and written communications will be received. The Zoom link for the meeting is available on the town website at www.thomastonct.org. Application files are also available for inspection on the town website, in the Land Use Office at 860-283-8411 during normal business hours. Dated this 18th and 25th day of June, 2020, Rebecca Skinner, Vice Chairman, Thomaston Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, thank you, Christine. And I understand from what Stacy said earlier that, Tom, you are recusing yourself from this, this case. So sitting on this application will be Rob Mandino, Christine Yos, Matt Kamens, and myself, Becky Skinner. And the applicant can, I'll ask the applicant to explain his request for the variance and present any materials that he has to present.
All right, my name is Kevin Green. You need my address and map.
Okay, I'm just bringing up your
You get-
materials right now, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, whenever you're ready, Kevin, and if you need me to move anything around on the screen so that you can show what you're speaking about, just let me know.
Okay. Well, I was here to, at the behest of the P&Z, to come in front of the board to get a variance from a permit that's been ongoing that I've had. There's been I guess there's a recognized problem with the permit, and that problem would be that to perform the work that I've been approved for, that the crusher, if I crush any more here on this property, has to be 200 feet away from the roadways. Unfortunately, due to topography, there's no physical way to actually do that. So that's what I'm here for. I don't know what else you need from me.
I'm just going to rotate the pictures that Mr. Green submitted so you can take a peek at them. This is his property, and oh wow, you can see it's at a corner. This is West Hill Road over here where my arrow is, and this is Waterbury Road right here. This is the entrance into the site from Waterbury Road. And then this is the road going up West Hill. While there is an entranceway over here as a part of the approved plan that is being closed off. Make sure I have everything. Okay. So in a nutshell, if you can see in the back behind where all the work is, this is all solid rock outcrop. So would it be fair, Mr. Green, to say that in order to meet 200 feet from either of those streets, it would be supremely difficult due to the outcropping of the rock right there?
That would be correct. We'd have to be up in the top of the tree line up top.
Mr. Green did receive a site plan approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission, that he subsequently came back and asked for a renewal, and that renewal was granted. So the work that he is doing on site is permitted. However, the materials did not speak to the crushing of rock, which obviously has to happen here. And so when this was brought to Mr. Green's attention, he immediately came to the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss everything. I do have, if you are interested, Ms. Ralph Salone, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, is also on the call to help explain the situation. And Kevin Green immediately came in and spoke with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And when it was recommended that he come see you guys and try to see about obtaining a variance so that he can use the crushing equipment that he needs to use as a part of his operation, he can get the variance to do so. It is part of our, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Could I interject just one thing with this? One, you know, if I do crush anymore or to process anything, it will be kept as far away from the property line and the roadway as possible. I always try to make firm to my neighbors. And even if there is no material there, as you can see behind that piece of equipment, the fact that there's a retaining wall up and that West Hill is higher acts as a natural berm itself. And I also want to say that, you know, the site plan was approved. We all knew that there was going to have to be rock taken out. You can't just do that with a broom or a shovel. So now that you know, it's been brought to everybody's attention, including myself, that there needs to be a variance. That's why I'm here to just continue with my permit and, you know, of course, do it the right way through the town.
This is Ralph Salone from Planning and Zoning. May I speak?
Yes, Ralph, go ahead. This is Becky.
So when Mr. Green came in with this application, it was obvious what he was going to have to do, and he was very upfront about it, and did everything in his power to do everything correctly. None of us at the time realized that he would be within that 200-foot limit. Had we known that, had realized that at the time, we probably would have asked him to come see the ZBA at an earlier time. So P&Z, in essence, supports this request and has actually, based on conversations with Mr. Green and similarly, Mr. Williams, is looking to revise some of our regulations to permit this type of work, or to loosen some of the restrictions on this type of work in these types of settings, because really on this piece of property, there really is no place he could put the equipment and still meet the 200-foot setback. This type of variance, if memory serves me correctly, has already been granted
To a couple
years
of properties.
ago. Yes, years ago to other properties. Actually, right on Waterbury Road, the Zappone property has a similar variance in place. And again, you know, P&Z would like to see this happen. We feel that there is perhaps unnecessary restrictions in our regs, and we are looking to make changes. The only issue is for P&Z to change their regs. It's a long and drawn out process, and we have no desire to shut Mr. Green down for an extended period of time just while we work through our own process. So the most expedient solution for him is to get this variance. And I think that's all I have to say, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ralph. Stacy, could you go back to the other picture, or one of the other pictures that shows Waterbury Road, there we go. Can maybe use your pointer to show where the 200 mark would be? And
Up here at the top of this outcrop, would that be correct, Mr. Green?
Yes, it's deceiving, this, looking on Zoom here, looking at it, but that is 200 feet. My real problem is getting 200 feet from West Hill Road, because the lot narrows and the road goes closer to the lot and the hill goes closer to West Hill. So behind that big. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just
No
going to
problem.
say that if you would, if the commission finds it helpful, I'm just pulling up the GIS maps now, so you can get a sense of the whole property. That's some storm coming through, huh? So yeah, if you could, I have the, here we go. I have the GIS up right now, and you can tell that according to the assessor's information, this side of the lot is 286 feet. So yes, the 200 feet back from Waterbury would be back here somewhere. And
30.
200 feet back here would be maybe somewhere in this range.
Yeah, it's on the top of the tree line up there.
okay, thank you. And where, excuse me, but I'm not real familiar with this type of business. Where does most of the processing take place? Where the equipment is shown now, or where the piles are?
No, where the equipment is right now is where it's getting loaded out, taking it out of the site. The processing is in the back where the material actually comes out of the ground, so I can, keep working towards my ultimate goal of putting in a landscape supply yard back there. So the processing is done in the hole where the virgin material comes out. That's where any of the processing noise is, it's way in the back.
Okay, thank you.
This is Ralph Salone. Can I speak again?
Yes, go ahead, Ralph.
That is something I forgot to mention before, and Stacy, correct me if I get some of the details wrong, because it's been a while, but Mr. Green's permit is not for the primary purpose is not to do earth excavation and mining.
Correct.
His site plan is approved for a very nice landscape and materials retail outlet. And this earth excavation and mining that he is doing is just ancillary to achieving the final goal of preparing the property for the buildings and the storage of the landscape and materials. I should have said that earlier. I forgot.
That is correct. There's a plan for a building. There's a plan for, I believe, a greenhouse, et cetera. But obviously, certain things had to take place first.
Thank you. Do other members of the ZBA have questions?
Rob Mandino, I have a question. Mr. Green, how long do you think it'll take you to clear that rock and move it out until you are set to build your buildings?
Let's see here. The permit expired on April of 2024, so everything has to be completed by then. Unfortunately, the material that I have coming out of there, it's difficult to move in a small town like this, and there's a lot of competition out there as far as trying to get the material sold so you can work on the property, keep working on it. So that's the biggest challenge with anything like that, is to process the material into a form that you can sell to get rid of it so that you can keep working on it. We don't live in Ohio where we just have flat fields and we could just go in and pave and put up any building we want. You know, we have to make the land conform to what we need it, and, you know, especially in Thomaston. So with the topography the way it is, so it's a challenge. But obviously it would have to be done before my permit is up in 2024.
And are you using a portable crushing plant now? I don't see one.
No, there's a crusher there right now, but it's just sitting there. It's not in use.
Okay. Is that movable, the crushing plant?
Yes, yep. Yeah, it's too expensive for me to. It's too expensive for me to keep.
Oh, okay. So it's conceivable as you develop your property that you'll be going farther and farther away from either road.
Yes, if there's any processing done, it gets farther away. And, you know, as you can tell by this picture, especially with the shadow there, you can tell how much of a depression it is as far as the topography around it, which, you know, really is a gigantic buffer for noise. Right where the curve of West Hill Road is, I have my nearest next door neighbor, and quite often when I talk to them on the phone, because we're pretty good friends, they don't even know I'm over there working, even though, you know, we're talking on the phone.
Okay, thank you.
And then just to show you, since the map is up like this, I own the other two sides of the property. You know, you have West Hill Road, Waterbury Road, our state and town owns that, and then I own the surrounding two sides around it in the red. That is also my property. That's where I live.
Okay.
So if I have anybody to listen to, it's going to be my wife.
Okay, other questions from members of the ZBA?
Yeah, this is Christine Yost. Do we have anybody there who is a neighbor that wants to speak to this issue?
I'm sorry, Christine, this is Becky. I did not hear the question.
Do we have any correspondence from anybody, any neighbors about this matter? Or is anyone online now who's a neighbor who's interested possibly in speaking about this? Kevin, do you know about anybody?
I know the Rosums. Yes, I know the Rosums that I had spoken about actually showed up at the town hall when the last meeting was canceled. I don't know if they knew there was another meeting rescheduled, but they were going to go down and speak in my favor.
I was going to say, I have not received anything one way or the other via email or any other way regarding Mr. Green's application.
And Stacy, this is Christine again. Stacy, you would have sent another letter to the adjoining neighbors, reminding them, telling them about this meeting,
When
right?
when we realized the error in the noticing that inaccurately said it was a variance of section 22 rather than section 21, we renoticed, we redid the legal noticing, and we redid the noticing to all abutting neighbors.
So Kevin, you don't have to worry, just Christine again, you don't have to worry that they weren't notified. They were legally noticed on this matter.
Right. Well, I had spoken to them about the first meeting because they were asking about it when I had a conversation with them. They went actually down to town hall the night that it was canceled. So I haven't spoken to them since. They've been out of been on vacation or somewhere else, so they haven't been around. So I haven't talked to them. So.
Okay, this is Becky. Anybody else on the ZBA or members of the public who are online who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay, I guess we will close the hearing then.
I move that we close the hearing on application number this is Christine again, that we close the hearing on application number 2020-05-28-01 from Kevin Green.
Okay. Is there a second from ZBA?
Rob Mandino, second.
Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing? Rob,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes,
Matt,
Yes.
and this is Becky. I vote yes as well. So the hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. Okay, and I guess we'll go right ahead into discussion and possible action. Is
this is Christine Yost. I was happy to hear from Ralph Simone that he's considering changing the regulation, the P&Z regulations in the near future to accommodate this kind of work in Thomaston in the M1 zone. I applaud his thinking on that matter. So I think I find that if P&Z is willing to go along with this, that maybe we should be willing to expedite this process for Mr. Green and grant him this variance.
okay. Matt or Rob?
This is Matt. I agree with Christine.
Yeah, Rob, me too.
Mhm. Okay, and this is Becky. I also agree, especially hearing that this is a step to a different type of use of the property, but it's a necessary step to get to where Mr. Green would like to be with the property.
Mhm.
So,
And this is Christine again, and apparently the neighbors do not object. Apparently they're not concerned about noise levels, dust levels, or any of the other things that might be brought up. I haven't heard anything about that at all.
no, no, it sounds like they received adequate notice, and they have not, if they're on the call, then they're not, they don't want to make any comments. So I think we can assume that there's no objections.
And just as a final, once again, if anybody was trying to make a comment and was not able to, the chat function is available. You can also quickly email me and let me know, but I have not received anything. And on my end, everybody is unmuted.
Stacy, does Christine know if there's any other people online here with us today?
There are. So
Okay, yeah, no-
if you wanted to just give them a moment or two in case they did want to speak, but I am not, as of right now, I'm not seeing anything.
Hello?
I think somebody might be addressing the chair.
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes, please identify yourself.
It's my name's Dave Markham over at 1501 Waterbury Road, and I'm a little confused. Is this property designated as M1 light manufacturing or M2 heavy manufacturing?
M1.
Okay. And on the M1, I mean, is blasting allowed on M1? I'm not sure if he is blasting or not, but
There is, let me get the zoning regulations, that's so I can read it and not misspeak. Just bear with me a moment. Okay, the regulations that pertain to the processing of earthen materials permit this activity in both the M1 and M2 zones. It's not permitted in any other zone.
Okay, thank you.
Stacy, it's Christine again. Does the wording specifically say blasting? Because Dave just asked about blasting.
Well, no, it does not specifically say blasting, but blasting is also something that's the purview of the fire marshal. I mean, it's conceivable in a variety of different places that a blasting permit could potentially be needed.
Mr. Green, this is Christine Yost again. Are you planning to get?
No,
Oh, he can't talk. I'm sorry.
well, just for clarity, Madam Chairperson, we had a motion to close the public hearing at 7:38. We did entertain Mr. Markham's question. Do we wish to reopen or are we officially closed?
I think we should be officially closed.
Okay,
Yeah, I did ask for public comment before we closed the hearing.
okay.
If somebody was trying to get on and couldn't, then I could understand why we might reopen it. So if that is the case, then, when I asked for a public comment, if the problem was inability to connect or to be heard, then I would consider reopening, but otherwise, no.
I just to explain, I only asked because you brought up the M1 classification, which I thought it was M2 classification. That's the only reason why I asked.
Okay.
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 Failing that, I am not seeing any other questions in the chat and no, 1 second. Neither am I seeing anything in my inbox, so.
Okay. Then if there's no more deliberation on the part of the ZBA, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Christine Yost. I move that we approve application number 2020-05-28-01 based on the following information. Whereas the Thomaston Zoning Board of Appeals has received this application 2020-05-28-01 from Kevin Green, which is an application for a variance of section 21.1.h and section 4.5, Schedule A, Part C26, to locate processing equipment less than 200 feet from the western and southern property lines at 555 Waterbury Road, located in an M1 light manufacturing zone. Whereas the ZBA held a public hearing and deliberations and has reviewed the application and other documents associated with application number 2020-05-28-01 on June 30th, 2020. The other documents include 3 color photographs of the location. The reason for the approval: the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the Thomaston zoning regulations. It will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. And the hardship that we've identified: the topography of the land does not allow for earth processing equipment to be 200 feet from the roadway. That's the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Mandino, second.
Okay, we'll do roll call again. Rob?
Yes.
Just to clarify, voting yes is approving the variance. Voting no would be not disagreeing with the variance.
Yes.
Okay, Rob, yes. Christine?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And this is Becky. I vote yes as well. So all 4 of us vote yes. So the variance is approved.
With music.
Yes, right, yeah, fanfare.
It's celebratory music for Mr. Green.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so, Mr. Green, we will be sending you a copy of your variance. We'll also be filing it on the land records. It should be coming to you probably within the next 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay, then we'll move on to our second public hearing on application 2020052603 of Josh Williams and Megan Hill. I call this public hearing to order. Will the applicant or applicants please explain the reasons for the request for variance?
Hang on one second. I'm just getting your materials up. There we go.
Hi, this is Megan Hill.
And I just have before the commissioners right now, the application form submitted by Megan Hill and Josh Williams, who are MJW Services.
Okay, and sitting on this application will be Rob Mandino, Tom Langless, Christine Yos, Matt Kamens, and myself, Becky Skinner. So there are 5 commissioners, 4 yes votes are needed to approve the variance. Okay, Megan, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, sorry. I don't have access to a computer, but Stacy has all of our documentation of what we provided with a PowerPoint presentation. But I'm Megan, this is Josh is on too. We own 1617 Waterbury Road. We have 37 acres of property. 6 acres of that is the level property on the bottom there.
The area I
One
have,
second.
just so you know, Megan, I have the GIS up
Yes, I
of the
see that.
property. Okay. And I trying to circle the area so that people can see the area.
I'm in the wrong car. Sorry.
And let me pull up your other materials. And
So we
also
do have M1 zoned property, and we do have an earth recycling permit that we received last year.
and while the property is 36 acres,
31 acres is a mountain,
yes,
similar to
she-
Kevin Green.
yeah. 5 acres of the property is level, 31 acres of the property is a mountain of rock. From the road to the deepest point is 265 feet, and a majority of the property is less than 150 feet deep. Their screener is 45 feet long, and we have limited space. Additionally, they're unable to cross-contaminate premium topsoil with recycled process. They are looking for a 50-foot variance from the road for screening purposes only, not for crushing of material. And then they submitted some pictures as well, which I'm going to try and bring up.
That's just the GIS again.
And this is a view from Waterbury Road.
And then
This
we
is an-
provided some drone views also that you could see. That's the Merritt's houses that are on the right and their rental property. They also provided an email to Stacy supporting this variance.
Yep, I'm going to be reading it in shortly. And here's another aerial view
That
of,
one's a good one to stay on, because that shows that the issue we have is we have different types of material, which my husband can speak to, that we can't cross contaminate. So the issue is we're unable to utilize that whole area because of the 5 different types of material we have.
and this is the equipment in question, correct, Megan?
Correct. That's the screener there.
And that's that. Okay. So I would just, if you bear with me a moment, I will get the email that I received from their abutting neighbor.
And they're the neighbor to the south of us. To the north of us is another 36 acres that the Sapone zone. And then Mr. Markham. And then there's 2 other neighbors to the north of that.
I'm not sure why I'm having difficulty finding it. Hang on 1 second.
This is Ralph Salone from P&Z. As Stacy's looking for that email, may I speak?
Yes, Ralph, go ahead.
So pretty much everything I said for the last property applies here also. It's the same deal. You know, they just physically can't put the screener more than 200 feet back as required by the current regs. And this is another reason why we're looking at revising the regs. And, you know, these MJW Services has been, you know, a upfront and honest player through this whole process. They've made every effort to comply with every zoning reg that's there. It's just this one item is just not gonna be able to be complied with, you know, unless they started blasting away the mountain. And I don't I don't think anybody wants to see that happen. But again, because of these types of situations and because these types of variances have been granted in the past on this road, you know, the P&Z would like to put its support behind this request.
And I do have the email up that I received from Megan Hill's abutting neighbor. It says this is a notice from the Merritts 1739 and tenants 1745 in regard to Josh and Megan recycling on Waterbury Road. I understand they are filing for some zoning variance of 50 feet from the road. We are the closest to the said business and wanted to let the town know we have no issues with it. We are not able to make the meetings, but once again, we are in favor and have no issues. Thanks kindly, Norman Merritt and Howard Van Duset.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay. Other questions for the applicant from ZBA members?
This is
I
Christine.
have Tom Langlis. I have a couple of questions. Is the variance is for the screener only and not other equipment?
That is correct. We're looking for the screener only, not to crush.
Excuse me. Any plans of possibly cutting into the mountain and moving the equipment back in the future that would meet zoning requirements?
Yes.
Possibly, but not anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
This is Christine Yost. On page 1 of your application, you say, for the purpose of locating screening equipment less than 200 feet from the road, and yet in another spot you mentioned the 50-foot variance. So you seem to be not consistent in what you're requesting.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
That they have been consistent throughout that they were looking for 50 feet. When we did the legal noticing, et cetera, the variance is of the regulation that requires 200 feet. So when Pat and I did the noticing for both Mr. Williams and for Mr. Green, that's the terminology we used, the less than 200 feet from the road.
So we actually, this is Chris again, so we have the option of actually granting them a variance of more than 50 feet?
You're granting a variance. The regulation as it is currently written requires 200 feet from the property line. So they are requesting, correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, but you are requesting to be able to process up to 50 feet from the property line.
Correct, similar to Kevin Green.
So if it was the board's pleasure, and they did wish to grant this, they could put that kind of caveat onto it as a part of the conditions.
Okay, so you are suggesting that you want to, what you're requesting is that this is Christine again, that you will move your equipment, always have your equipment at least 50 feet from the road.
That is correct.
That would not be a hardship for you.
No. We currently are about 50 feet from the road. That's where we've been obtaining.
So how much footage do you have if you go in 50 feet? How much more level land do you have to work?
We only have about 200. But the problem is the different types of material we can't cross-contaminate.
Yeah, oh no. Okay, so you got about 150 feet of land you can work with.
About, yes, and then it goes up to a mountain.
Approximately 150 feet. You'll keep it 50 feet from the road, and then you have 150 feet you can work with. Mm.
The issue is the screener is 45 feet in itself. So right there, it's about 50 feet from the berm.
From the property line to the screener, and then the screener itself is almost another 50 feet is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's 8 o'clock.
Ah.
Okay, and that will be sufficient for your operation. Christine's asking.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, other comments or questions from Zoning Board of Appeals members? Okay, this is Becky. I have no questions. Do we have any other communications besides the one you read, Stacy?
I'm not directly speaking to this, but you may want to open the floor to public comment.
Okay. Okay, if there's any members of the public online who would like to speak, please identify yourself.
Hello. This is Dave Markham, 1501 Waterbury Road again.
Okay, Dave.
I'm a little confused. Did they say the variances for operating equipment less than the 200 feet?
The regulation requires that equipment be at least 200 feet from any property line. When the legal noticing was done, that is how the wording was in there. The application, etc., that Ms. Hill and Mr. Williams submitted, I'm pulling it up right now. And turning it. Locating screening equipment less than 200 feet from road is on the application. I assisted them in writing this. That's what they stated. However, if you go in here, we are looking for a 50-foot variance from the road. So they were looking to place it 50 feet from the road. This
Okay,
was,
so aren't they operating 50 feet from the road now and have been for like the last 2 weeks?
which is why they're here now. They had come before planning and zoning. Was it, Ralph, was it the May meeting? When
it was either April or May, I don't recall.
Okay. They were asked, as was Mr. Green, to come for exactly this reason, so we could discuss all of these issues in terms of the fact that both operations were currently occurring less than the 200 feet that the regulations specify. So what came out of that after discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission, was the best way to address this was for both Mr. Green and Mr. Williams and Ms. Hill to apply for a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which each one of them immediately then did. Unfortunately, we got held up because of an error in the original legal notice.
So they were able, so they had your permission to operate without being 200 feet from the road until the variance was issued?
Well, as you know, planning and zoning cannot waive its regulations on its own, regardless of whether or not it makes sense to do so. Our action was not to take any enforcement actions while this application was in front of the ZBA.
Even if you have complaints on it?
I don't recall having complaints.
You have, Mr. Markham has sent some in, and he was notified per letter that this was actually going before the ZBA. And that is
Well,
how it was going to be addressed.
I just got the letter last week, just before the last zoning one was canceled. I didn't hear anything since then. But that's neither here or there. But the only complaint I have on that is when they operate that thing the way they do close to the road, on the drier days, there's a cloud of dust that goes by that road that I have to drive through, sometimes a couple times a day, which I'm kind of opposed to. So maybe if they could put up some kind of a fence to keep that dust, or maybe water the material down to keep it from dusting.
Yeah, I don't know, Megan, is there anything that can be done to minimize the dust?
Excuse me, this is Josh Williams. I'd like to say that you cannot screen topsoil while it's wet. Doesn't work. And we are going to be planting in the berm this weekend, actually, just put the screening in.
Yeah, just for clarification, when MJW Services received because they went through the special permit process to be approved for the earth materials recycling permit that they did get. As a part of that, and as was further enhanced after they came back yet again to P&Z to clarify their hours of operation, and they went through that whole process voluntarily as well. They have, as a part of their approval, the creation of a berm all along the frontage of their property, with the exception, obviously, of the access point in. They are in process of building the berms now, and Josh, you're saying that those are getting planted this weekend?
This weekend, we're going to commence transplanting the trees.
So basically, it's the berm, and then the trees are going to be on top?
Correct.
Stacy, isn't there supposed to be a silt fence there too?
While things are not stabilized, yes, some sort of stabilization. How you achieve that can be done in a couple of different ways, but yes, there should be some sort of stabilization if there isn't plant life. When I've gone by, there has been plant life throughout some of the berms.
But I mean, on the permit, it says silt fence though, doesn't it?
I'd have to double check myself. Since I don't have it right in front of me, I wouldn't want to misspeak.
But that wouldn't be a permanent silt fence. It would only be until the
Correct.
fauna grew on the flora grew on the berm.
Oh, so that should have been installed a long time ago then.
I think the point Stacy is trying to make, and Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that there is already flora growing on the berm and there's no need for a silt fence. No longer any need for a silt fence.
Okay.
Okay, we thank you, Mr. Markham, for your comments, but we also want to keep to the topic of the variance itself.
Okay.
Mhm. Other comments from the public? Okay.
I have a question, Tom Langlis, before we close the meeting. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it looks like they're looking for a 50-foot variance. Now, if they're going to place it 50 foot with the road, are they really looking for a 150-foot variance?
Yeah.
I think that's actually would be correct, and it might how the wording was done, but they were forthright from the get-go when we first spoke with P&Z about the fact that where they were hoping to place the screening at equipment at its closest would be 50 feet from the property line. We actually discussed it at the P&Z meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
And again, if it were your pleasure to grant a variance, that could definitely be incorporated into any motion and certainly into conditions that would be put into the variance document itself.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Or is there a motion to close the hearing?
I'll move to close the meeting. Tom Langlis.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
I'll second it, that we close the hearing, public hearing. Christine here.
Okay, thank you. All right, roll call vote on closing the hearing. Rob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The hearing is now closed. We'll move into discussion and possible action on the application. So one thing we would need to firm up before we have any motion to act on the request would be whether we want the vaguer wording less than 200 from the western property line, or specifically ask for a variance of 150 feet from the regulation of less than 200 feet from the property line, any property line.
I would definitely encourage that since the Mr. Williams and Ms. Held both indicated they were looking to be no closer than 50 feet, I would definitely say you'd want to spell that out. That, if you are permitting it, you're permitting it to be as close as and no closer than 50 feet.
Okay, so use that wording rather than specifically saying just a variance of 150 feet. Is that?
You can say that. I'm just, rather than opening it up to saying, oh, well, then, any, 1 foot from the property line is less than 200 feet from the property line. So what I'm saying is just, yeah, give it some specificity.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Other comments from the commission?
Nope.
Okay, are we ready to act on the application?
Mhm.
There.
This is Christine. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
That we approve this application number 2020-05-26-03 based on the following information. Whereas the Thomaston Zoning Board of Appeals has received application number 2020-05-26-03 from Megan Hill on behalf of MJW Services LLC. Application for a variance of section 21.1.H and section 4.5, Schedule A, Part C, point 26, to locate processing equipment less than 200 feet from the western property line. Specifically, we are granting a variance of 150 feet from the current 200 feet setback requirement. And specifically, we are allowing them to place equipment
Screening.
more than 50 feet. It has to be at least more than 50 feet away from the Waterbury Road property line at 1617 Waterbury Road, located in M1 light manufacturing zone. Whereas the ZBA held a public hearing and deliberations and has reviewed the application and other documents associated with application 2020-05-26-03 on June 30th, 2020. The other documents include aerial photo with property outlined with red, a map with property outlined with red, and 7 colored photographs. The reason for the approval: the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the Thomaston zoning regulations and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. The hardship being that the property consists of 36 acres, 5 acres of which is level. 31 acres is a mountain of rock. From the road to the deepest point is 265 feet. The majority of the property is less than 100 feet deep. The screener is 45 feet long. There's limited space and cross-contamination of topsoil. A premium topsoil with recycled process must be avoided. The 50-foot variance from the road is for screening purposes only, not for crushing of material. That's the motion.
And berming and plantings should be done in accordance with the permit that was granted by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes, as Stacy just modified this motion.
Okay, thank you, Christine and Stacy. Is there a second?
Rob Mandino, second.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We will vote on the variance made by Christine and seconded by Rob. A yes vote is in favor of granting the variance. No vote is not in favor of granting the variance. Rob?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes. So the variance is approved by a vote of 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you two will be getting information within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
You
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Okay, then the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our February 18th regular meeting.
This is Christine. I did compare the minutes to my notes from that evening. My notes. The only thing I didn't remember was Attorney Phillipsy being there. Maybe somebody else remembers him being there. I don't remember if he was there or not. But I guess that's a minor point. So I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Matt Keeman's all second.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, all in favor, Rob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. The minutes are accepted as presented. Okay, I guess, Stacy, do we have any communications or legislative updates?
I believe we sent around, prior to the original night this meeting was going to be held, the updated version of the zoning regulations. Planning and Zoning had adopted 2 amendments to their regulations. The first was in response to COVID-19 and allowing restaurants to have outdoor dining service, sometimes in the, if necessary, in the parking areas. And then the second, that is a temporary approval situation that is only going to last for the duration of the state of emergency and no later than, I believe, October 15th. At that point, the regulation will sunset. So there is that. And then there was an additional amendment that added some new definitions and also revamped the section pertaining to text amendments and signage requirements for zone change applications that are initiated by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we did send that around via email. If you prefer us to get you a hard copy, let me know. We did already do that for, I believe, Tom. But if anybody else wants hard copy, let us know and we'll try to get it ready for you. And try to get arrangements for you to be able to pick it up if we, it's still unclear what we're doing as far as meetings for the next month. So we'll try to get it to you however you prefer it.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. And any reports of officers, staff, or committees?
Really not. P&Z is meeting tomorrow night. They're going to be looking at some other potential text amendments pertaining to signage and solar and a few other things, but nothing is going to be an immediate sort of situation, I don't think. Ralph can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't see us taking any action on those. I see us continuing them.
Agreed. So be aware of more things may be coming down the pike in the next few months, but as of right now, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. I guess unless somebody has some further business, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
This is Christine Yost. I move that we adjourn the meeting, tonight's meeting of the ZBA, Thomaston ZBA, of June 30th, 2020.
Okay. Second.
Tom Langley, I'll second it.
Thank you. And I think for this motion, we can just say all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Yeah.
Guys
Is
did
anybody
great. Thank you very
opposed?
much.
Okay. Yes, thank you. And thank you so much, Stacy, for your
Not a-
support in this.
Not a problem. You guys did great.
virtual
Have a good
meeting.
evening.
Okay, thanks. You too.
Yes, thank you.